The bank notification pierced through the pharmacy's fluorescent lights like a physical blow. $2,340,000. Withdrawal successful. My fingertips went numb against the phone screen as the elderly customer across the counter continued talking about his blood pressure medication. Each word he spoke seemed to stretch and distort. The pharmacy suddenly too bright, too loud, too close. I forced air into my lungs as the realization crystallized. My parents had finally made their move. 10 years of sacrifice. Gone. My carefully crafted house fund. Stolen. And they had done it today of all days, my 30th birthday. The prescription bottle in my hand slipped slightly, but I tightened my grip until my knuckles whitened. Twice daily with food, Mr. Callahan, I managed to say, my voice unnaturally calm despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. As he shuffled away, I glanced at my supervisor and whispered, "Family emergency," before rushing out the door. My name is Nicole. I'm 30 and a pharmacy assistant manager. This is the story of how I turned my parents' greed into the freedom I never thought possible. The 40-minute bus ride home felt like moving through molasses. Each stop, each traffic light, each slow-moving pedestrian crossing the street was an eternity of anticipation. I kept refreshing my banking app, watching the catastrophic zero balance stare back at me. 10 years of working 2 jobs, of skipping meals and living without vacations, of enduring my parents' constant financial intrusion, all culminating in this betrayal. When I burst through our front door, Mom and Dad were sitting in the living room, the picture of casual entitlement. Dad, Benjamin, was reading his newspaper with practiced calm. Mom, Rachel, scrolled through her phone with the faintest smile playing at her lips. Where is my money? The question tore from my throat before I could compose myself. Dad folded his newspaper with theatrical precision, the way he did whenever he was about to deliver what he considered parental wisdom. The crisp sound of the paper folding was the only sound in the room for 5 excruciating seconds. "Thank you for your naivety, Nicole," he finally said without meeting my eyes. "Your money now guarantees Catherine's bright future." Mom finally looked up from her phone, cold satisfaction radiating from her gaze. "A girl like you would have wasted it anyway. You have no judgment to manage so much money." That's when something unexpected happened. I started laughing. Not from humor, but from the pure, crystalline satisfaction of knowing they had walked directly into my trap. They exchanged confused glances. "Have you gone crazy?" Mom asked, her brow furrowing. "Did you take the money from the wrong account?" I asked between bursts of laughter. The color drained from Dad's face so quickly it was as though someone had pulled a plug. "What are you talking about?" I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly steadier than I'd felt in years. "That account you just emptied? That was the bait account. The account I created specifically for this moment." My parents had always treated me as their personal ATM. From the moment I started working at Morrison's Pharmacy at 20, they implemented their family contribution system. 80% of my $4,500 monthly salary went straight to them, leaving me with barely enough to survive while my sister Catherine never worked a single day. Catherine was their golden child: private school, designer clothes, a social calendar filled with country club events. Meanwhile, I woke at 5 a.m., took 2 buses across town to work on my feet all day, and returned home at 10 p.m., exhausted and empty-handed. But I had developed my own system. I got a second job at Romano's restaurant on weekends, telling my parents I was working overtime at the pharmacy. That extra $500 monthly went into a secret account they knew nothing about. For 5 years, I lived like a ghost. No new clothes until something literally disintegrated. Packed lunches, always just a sandwich and an apple. No movies, no dates, no social life. I counted bus fare while Catherine threw pool parties and went on spring break trips. At 25, I was promoted to assistant manager. My salary jumped to $4,500 monthly, and Benjamin and Rachel immediately increased my contribution to $3,600. What they didn't know was that I'd also started freelance bookkeeping for small businesses, another $3,000 monthly that went straight to my hidden account. Everything changed when I was 27. While helping Rachel organize tax documents, I discovered something chilling. Copies of all my banking information, statements from accounts I thought were private, even my social security card and birth certificate. They'd kept everything from when I was a minor, monitoring my finances for years. The revelation of their true intentions came accidentally from my Aunt Paula. Rachel and Benjamin were planning to use my savings to pay for Catherine's medical school, private medical school, 6 years at $15,000 per semester. They needed at least $1.8 million. I could have confronted them immediately. I could have moved my money, changed banks, cut them off completely. But I decided on something more devastating. I opened a third account with an online-only bank using my friend Olivia's address. Then I began the most elaborate financial shell game of my life. Over the next 3 years, I gradually moved my real savings to this untraceable account while maintaining exactly $1.8 million in the account my parents knew about, the exact amount they needed for Catherine's education. The beautiful part? That $1.8 million wasn't real money. It was a carefully constructed illusion made of pre-approved credit lines, temporary transfers, and funds I'd shuffled between accounts to make the balance look legitimate. For 3 years, I fed this illusion, leaving bank statements where they could accidentally find them, mentioning my savings in casual conversations. My real money, over $2.3 million, was safely invested and growing in an account they could never find. I knew they'd make their move around my 30th birthday. Catherine was starting her final year, and tuition was due. So that Tuesday, while I was explaining prescriptions to customers, Rachel and Benjamin walked into First National Bank with my documents and forged my signature. They withdrew every penny of what they thought was my life savings. When I said trap account, I meant it literally, I continued, pulling out my phone. You just committed multiple felonies, document forgery, identity theft, grand larceny, all recorded on the bank's security cameras. I showed them the police report I'd filed online an hour earlier. You have until noon tomorrow to return every penny, or I hand over all the evidence to the DA's office. Rachel's mascara began running down her cheeks. You can't do this to your own family. We only wanted what's best for Catherine. And what about what's best for me? My voice was steady, surprising even myself. When did you ever think about my future? When did you care that I worked like a slave while you spent my money on your precious princess? Benjamin tried to save face. We raised you. We put a roof over your head. You owe us gratitude. Family helps family. You're absolutely right, I said. That's why I'm giving you the chance to return the money. It's more than you ever did for me. Catherine walked in then, jingling keys to her brand new BMW, bought with my stolen money. When she learned what was happening, she said, Nicole, you're being so selfish. You've always been jealous of me. You never want to see me happy. It was the final straw. I called my lawyer, Trent, right there in front of them. He'd been preparing for this moment for months. The criminal complaint was already drafted. All he needed was my go-ahead. The next morning at 11:47, my phone rang. Benjamin's voice was shaking so badly I could barely understand him. The money's back in your account, he whispered. I checked. There it was. $1.8 million. Returned in full. But I didn't withdraw the criminal complaint. 2 hours later, Detective Quinn Rodriguez and his partner showed up at my parents' house with a warrant. The whole neighborhood watched as Rachel and Benjamin were led away in handcuffs. Catherine had to return the BMW to the dealership. The loan had been secured with stolen funds. Rachel and Benjamin had to liquidate their retirement accounts and sell their vacation home to cover legal fees. The local newspaper ran the story. Local couple arrested for stealing daughter's life savings. Their country club friends saw it. Their co-workers saw it. Catherine's medical school saw it. I took my real money, all $2.3 million, and bought my house. Cash. No mortgage, no debt, no strings attached. A beautiful 3-bedroom colonial in the nicest part of town, 15 minutes from their neighborhood but worlds away from their influence. I moved out that same day, taking nothing but my clothes. I didn't want a single thing connecting me to that life, that family, That version of myself who let people walk all over her. Rachel and Benjamin tried calling. They sent texts, emails, even had relatives reach out. They wanted to talk things through, to work it out as a family. They said they were sorry, that they'd made mistakes, that family should forgive. I blocked every number, changed my phone, and requested a job transfer to Portland. I started over completely. Today, 3 months later, I wake up in my own house every morning. My name is on the deed. My rules govern every room. My peace fills every corner. No one takes my money, demands my time, or treats me like a servant in my own life. I learned through Paula that Catherine had to drop out of medical school. Without her parents' financial support, now tied up in legal fees and restitution, she couldn't afford tuition. Rachel and Benjamin are drowning in debt. The house they mortgaged to pay legal bills is now in foreclosure. Sometimes people ask if I miss my family, if I regret being so extreme. They ask if I took things too far. I always give them the same answer. I spent 10 years being their personal bank account. Now, finally, I'm the owner of my own life. And the most satisfying part? That $1.8 million they returned, I donated every penny to a scholarship fund for students from low-income families. Money that had been stolen from me wasn't going to buy my freedom. My real savings, earned through my own sweat and sacrifice, purchased my independence. Because freedom isn't just about financial security. It's about breaking the chains of manipulation disguised as family obligation. It's about recognizing that some relationships aren't worth saving, not when they're built on exploitation rather than love. If you've ever found yourself giving and giving while receiving nothing but demands for more, know this: the hardest but most necessary lesson I learned was that sometimes walking away isn't giving up, it's the first step toward reclaiming your worth. Creating boundaries isn't selfish, it's an act of self-preservation. And sometimes, just sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop playing a rigged game and create your own rules instead. 3 months later, I'm living proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting ahead. While Rachel and Benjamin count legal bills and Catherine works retail to pay for community college, I'm building the life I always deserved. Those 10 years of sacrifice weren't wasted. They were an investment in this moment, this freedom, this peace. Every morning when I wake up in my house, I remember that girl who used to count bus fare and wonder if this day would ever come. She probably wouldn't recognize the woman I've become. Strong enough to wait 3 years for justice. Smart enough to turn their greed against them. Free enough to walk away from people who never deserved my loyalty.